2024. The Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service said the state witnessed no fewer than 1,085 incidents of fire outbreaks with Etiosa and Ikeja topping the list of affected local governments. This was a media activity report, by the director of the Lagos Fire and Rescue Service, Margaret Adeshe. She also said that January, February, and May witnessed more incidents of the fire outbreaks. She said during the period under review, the 3 months recorded a combined 614 fire outbreaks, with January having 213, February 215, and May recording 186 cases. While warning Nigerians to be cautious in their approach, Adeshe said that the investigations had revealed that carelessness and negligence were the major causes of the fire disaster. So joining us this morning is Oluwasonya Temitayo, is the head Inspectorate Unit, Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service. You're welcome. Did I get it right?
Good morning. Yes.
You're welcome, sir. So let's pick it up from the report she just read out. So aside from natural causes, because we know that there are natural causes of fire accidents, but the report clearly states that negligence and carelessness is a major cause. So can you please elaborate on what type of negligence, from your experience, what are the things that you have seen that has, brought about this fire incidents?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sir.
Negligence is the major cause of fire. When you don't pay attention to what you are doing, or when you do things wrongly, or when you throw caution to the wind, or you decide not to follow safety rules and regulations. So we regard that as negligence. So most of the time, when we go to fight fires, we have discovered that about 75 to 80% of these fires can be attributed to negligence and carelessness, careless attitudes of people. People throwing caution to the wind, not minding the way they do things, doing things anyhow, and giving way for fire to occur. There is a right environment for fire. If the right environment for fire is created, fire will definitely occur. You don't have to pray for it to happen. If the environment is created for fire to occur, fire will definitely occur. So negligence is the major cause of fire.
Negligence is the major cause of fire.
Okay, in that report, January, February, and May, recorded the highest number of the outbreaks. What, specific incidents or patterns have you observed in this month? I know usually January, February, March. Yes, it's not even that. It's just usually dry. It's dry, and and it comes with a lot of heat.
Yes, we have said several times that during the Harmattan season, materials around us are usually consisting of very low moisture content, making it easy for them to go up in flames. So when the moisture in the environment is reduced, you observe that they can easily, a fire can easily start if the other requirements are met. For instance, for a fire to occur, the three major things that are required are oxygen, heat, and fuel. So once the fuel is already readily available, when there is very low moisture content in the environment, discover that materials are dry, and it's very easy for a combustible material to easily go up in flames. So oxygen is readily available around us. Fuel is virtually everything around us is fuel. And then heat is what really makes the fire to occur once there is no proper separation between the ignition source and the probable fuels available.
Right. I want you to talk about different types of fire.
Okay.
Because something happened to the AC in my house, caught fire. You know, and my husband was quick to, you know, turn off the switch and fire went out. So and I was like, they say you use soap and water to quench fire. And he was like, no, that there are different types of fire. So please, I want you to educate us and educate our listeners on the different types of fire and how do we go about it.
All right, thank you. There are 4 classes of fires. We also have 4 classes of fire extinguishers that we use to combat these classes. The first class is Class A, fires of free burning materials. When materials like wood, paper, clothing are involved in a fire, they are regarded as Class A fires. Take note, they have nothing to do with electricity. They are just free burning, they burn freely. Most times when they burn, their end product is usually ashes or charcoal. So, the right fire extinguisher for that class of fire is the water gas fire extinguisher. The content of that fire extinguisher is water.
So the extinguishers are of different categories.
Types. That's what I'm trying to say. The first class is Class A, and the right fire extinguisher for that class is the water fire extinguisher. The content is water, but it is pressurized in order to release the content of the fire extinguisher at a pressure.
Okay, when you say, okay, there are different classes of extinguishers, and we notice that in most organizations or homes, or even in our cars, we just have one particular type. So how would you advise, you know, individuals, organizations on what extinguisher to buy?
Is there a general type like
yes, I'm not even listed on. I'm not done listing the classes of fires that we have. So we have Class B fires. They are fires of flammable liquids. When petrol or diesel are involved in fire, the right fire extinguisher is the foam fire extinguisher. If you're familiar with the activities of the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, you would have observed that there is what we call the chemical foam that we usually apply when a tanker overturns. So, like we usually tell Lagosians and tell people around that it's not when until a fire starts that you call the fire service in the case of the tanker. So as soon as you discover that a tanker has fallen and you are very sure that it's carrying a particular content, you are supposed to call the fire service. The fire service will be on ground to carry out what we call the standby duty and prevent fire from occurring. So what we call the chemical foam will be applied directly on the flammable liquid, preventing oxygen from reacting with that liquid. Like I said, oxygen is a requirement for fire to burn. When you prevent oxygen from reacting with that flammable liquid, there will be no fire. So that is fire prevention. So referring to the foam fire extinguisher is just in line with what I've just explained. So the second class is Class B fires. The third class are fires of gases. Fires of gases. When gases are involved in the fire, then we say it's a gas fire.
Okay, just before we continue, we'll go on this short break, and when we come back, the program continues.
We have like 13 LGA, but the LCDA are not. Okay, hold on, 6. That's like 70 something, I guess.
It's 20 LGA and 32 LCDA, making 52.
14 local government, but I don't know the local council.
For LCDs, I think 25, 20, I'm not sure. Then the LGAs should be around maybe it's same 20-25.
We have 20 local government and 37 LCDA.
Many thanks for staying with us. We still have Oluwasonya Temitayo, the Head Inspectorate Unit, Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, and he's talking about fire prevention and management here in Lagos. Just before we went to that break, he was talking about the different types of fire we have.
Yeah, so the third class of fire is the gas fire class. When gases are involved in a fire, we say it's a gas fire. We usually advise that the appropriate fire extinguisher for that class is the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Albeit, we usually advise that if you experience a gas fire, the first thing, maybe in a kitchen, the first thing is not to carry a fire extinguisher.
Okay, in the kitchen.
The first thing is to go out of your kitchen and shut off the knob of your gas cylinder.
Okay.
Like we usually say, that it's safe to have your cylinders outside the kitchen. Then you pipe in the contents of that cylinder into the kitchen, because fire usually starts from the burner, not from the cylinder. So when the fire starts, you are to do what we call starvation by shutting off the valve of the cylinder, starving the fire of fuel. Once that fire is starved of fuel, the fire would likely die a natural death or be reduced drastically. So at that point, if you still have, if the fire is still burning, you can then apply your available fire extinguisher. And most of the time, we usually advise that it should be the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. So that's like a safety tip for Lagosians. Then the fourth class is the metal fire class. Fires of metals. When metals are involved in fire, we classify them under class D. And the appropriate fire extinguisher is the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher. Dry chemical powder. Most of the time people call it the DCP, DCP for short. So in vehicles, we usually advise that you have your dry chemical powder fire extinguisher. At home, we usually advise that you have both the carbon dioxide and the dry chemical powder. Now, the difference between the two is that the carbon dioxide fire extinguisher is gas in nature, while the dry chemical powder is powdery. So the CO2, which is the carbon dioxide, can be used within the confines of a room, while the dry chemical powder can be used outside.
Okay.
Because of the content.
Okay.
Because if, like, someone is asthmatic and he inhales the content of the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher, you know, there could be an attack. So we usually advise that. Albeit, if the only fire extinguisher you have is the dry chemical powder, you have to ensure that everyone in the building or in that environment is evacuated. And the user must be very sure of his own status to ensure that he is not asthmatic in order to be able to use that fire extinguisher. And also know that if you apply the dry chemical powder fire extinguisher in the kitchen, it will end up contaminating the food. So actually, the right fire extinguisher for a kitchen is the CO2 fire extinguisher. So those are the classes of fire and the fire extinguishers that can be used to combat them.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about prevention of fires. Everybody is hoping that, you know, your property does not catch fire at any point, so there should be preventive measures in order not to have this fire. So what preventive measures can residents and businesses take to minimize the risk of fire outbreaks, especially high-risk areas like the one we talked about now, the Etiosa, which was also mentioned in the report?
Yeah, fire prevention is key. As a matter of fact, the cost of prevention can in no way be compared to the cost of rebuilding. So there's what we call the cost-benefit analysis. If you do a cost-benefit analysis of your activities, you discover that the amount you spend on prevention can in no way be compared with what you have to spend if you have to rebuild. So we usually advise that you ensure that you incorporate fire prevention into activities right from home. You must be safe at home. If you are not safe at home, there's no way you can be safe at work. You have to ensure that your environment is safe. Like I mentioned earlier, the kitchen is a risk area at home. And it must be well taken care of. There are so many mistakes that we do in the kitchen. So many people have converted their kitchens to stores. You find all kinds of materials that are not needed in the kitchen there. We have cases where people store up coolers and plates even above the cooking point. And when fire starts,
Some even have like
it helps the fire
shelves on top of the cooking
Even the
point.
shelf is wood.
It's wood, yeah.
It should not be directly above the cooking point. So these are the things that we talk about when we are talking about the housekeeping. Housekeeping is very important when it comes to fire. It helps fire to increase or to get out of control if there is no proper housekeeping. You have to be sure that materials around you are well arranged. Electrical points are exposed and not covered. Many times people cover electrical points with furniture. So electrical points should be exposed. The cooking point should be isolated from other points. We see so many things now. People use wood to around the cooking point. This is very risky in the name of designs and modern fabrications and so on. So these are free burning materials that once they come in contact with fire, it helps the fire to increase beyond what it should have been if there are no fuels available. So it's important to prevent fire. Most of the time, when the environment is free of free burning materials, and there is proper, like I said earlier, proper separation between ignition points and the probable fuels. Once there is proper separation, you discover that fire can be reduced.
Okay.
While at work, it's also important to ensure
Organizations,
the same. Yeah, to ensure that the environment is safe by applying the same method. Ensure good housekeeping. Good housekeeping is very important when it comes to fire prevention.
Okay, still talking about preventive measures. How aware are people about this? What are you doing, to ensure that people are aware? You just listed out the different types of fire. Some people do not know. So what are you doing to ensure that that residents of Lagos know these things that you've just listed out?
Sometimes they go to organizations.
We do a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
We do a lot. We go to organizations. We have a department known as the Fire Prevention Department, where we have the inspectorate unit, which I'm heading.
You are heading. Okay.
So we have the inspectorate unit, and we have inspectorate officers who go around commercial and business premises, organizations, schools, and so on, to conduct routine inspections to ensure that they comply with rules and regulations, fire safety rules and regulations. So this is what we do on a regular basis. We have a unit for that is dedicated to that. We also go around markets for advocacy, fire safety enlightenment campaigns. We do that regularly. It's a continuous thing. We don't stop that at any time. It's continuous. So we go to schools, we go to different parts of the state to ensure that they are aware of what is going on. We even on social media, our presence is being felt there. We do a lot to ensure that people hear the message of fire safety, and also tell them what they should do and what they should not do. You know that Lagos is very, very proactive, and Lagos is working seriously on ensuring that there is enough equipment and manpower to handle cases of fire and cases where prevention needs to be undertaken. So Lagos is trying in that regard to ensure that people hear the message. We also have regular programs. Like we just concluded a fire safety conference, Lagos International Fire Safety Conference, where Mr. Governor was there, and he spoke passionately about the incidents of fires in Lagos State. And he told the market women and everyone present there that they have a critical role to play when it comes to fire prevention.
Okay, let's look at response now and level of preparedness. It has come to our notice that residents complain about one thing, that the response time is usually not adequate. Also, the firemen have also responded that sometimes when they get there on time, they can't navigate some areas.
They can't get access
to some areas in order to put off the fire on time. What is the fire service doing about these?
All right. Thank you very much. It's important to note that the fire service cannot do everything alone. Government cannot do everything alone. That's why we organized the conference. And the theme for the conference was stakeholders collaboration, a panacea for to curb incessant fire disasters in Lagos. So it's not a fire service thing alone. It involves everyone. Fire prevention is the business of everyone, responsibility of everyone. It might not be your job, but it's your responsibility to ensure that fire is prevented. Now, talking about response, each time we receive a fire call, we respond immediately. We have 20 fire stations around Lagos State. And there are 3 new fire stations that are almost completed, about 95% completed, a completion stage. And they will be commissioned this year very soon by Mr. Governor. So there are presently 20 fire stations in Lagos State that are operational, and we respond from those fire stations. We don't respond from just one particular spot. We respond from all those fire stations, making response easy. The issues we have is the fact that many people don't call. They don't call when they experience emergencies. We have also discovered that it's passers-by that usually call the fire service when there is a fire outbreak. Most of the time,
is that not
people
because
want
they
to-
are panicking or
Yes,
they're
Yeah,
trying to...
what people do most times is to ensure that they salvage maybe their property
First.
and they are not bothered about calling the fire service. They feel that they can salvage property, but most of the time when you are trying to salvage property, the crowd around and people around will just, some of them will just come and take some of these things away. So the first thing you should do is to call the fire service to ensure that they are on their way to come and salvage the situation. We have worked tirelessly to ensure that in the first 10 minutes, we arrive at the scene of emergency and also fight. You would have seen some of our records that we get to scene of emergencies on time. We also have this issue of people not giving accurate addresses. For instance, you just call and say, there's a fire at Awolowo Way.
Where?
Which Awolowo Way? Awolowo Way Ikeja or Awolowo Way Ikoyi, or which Awolowo Way are you referring to? So most of the time...
When is Awolowo Way? When is Awolowo Road?
Yeah. There's a lot of confusion created when callers are trying to relate their messages.
Awolowo Road, meanwhile they mean Awolowo.
Exactly.
Okay.
So many confusions are created. So what we are trying to say is that we cannot do it alone. If you call on time, you describe accurately your address, the fire service will get to you. There was a time that someone said that he just tried the number to see if we would respond, and there was no fire. So he eventually saw the fire truck moving around that environment, and he said, so I didn't know they would come. So we actually came, and we could not locate any fire around there. So what we are trying to say is that the public has a serious role to play when it comes to response.
Okay.
It's not just about fire service alone.
Okay, I mentioned not having access.
Yes.
Which is one of the challenges.
Exactly.
That you face.
We regularly visit communities, we visit CDAs to ensure that we collaborate with them. We also have the issues of street gating, when you cannot access some roads because some gates are locked. So these are some of the challenges that we face, and so we collaborate with some of these CDAs, and we are getting some positive response as regards that. So, but talking about access in some of the streets that we have, I think the public still has serious role to play by ensuring that they don't do double parking. You know, the fire truck that we have is a little bit wider than the normal small cars that we have on the road. So there should be enough access for us to be able to get to the particular scene of fire, of emergency. So it's a collaboration thing. We need to collaborate together to ensure if you discover that such is happening around you and you cannot tackle it, you can call on the fire service in order to help you, assist you, correct some of these things.
Okay, just before that, I want him to talk more about some other challenges they face when they are attending to fire outbreaks. We've only talked about accessibility. What are the other challenges you face?
Yeah, sometimes when you don't call on time, and then the fire truck gets to your environment, we discover that we see some hoodlums coming around to attack us, telling us that we are late, and sometimes they prevent us from fighting the fire. Just saying that we are late, and so there's no point, that everything is lost already. But it is actually not the fault of the fire service. As soon as we receive the fire call, we respond immediately without wasting any time. So it's not the fault of the fire service. So the problem of hoodlums attack is a very, very prominent one, which we need to also, we are enlightening the public on, and we hope that we will be able to get over it. We also have the problem of people being agitated when we get to the scene of emergency. When we get to the scene of emergency, we are supposed to carry out what we call the 360-degree check to ensure that the environment is safe for the fireman to enter and also get the right access into the building. So you can't just start fighting a fire without locating the right access into the building. It's very important. So within that short time, when the firemen are trying to locate the right access into the building and to ensure that everything is properly done, the public are usually agitated, looking for quick intervention to ensure that things don't get out of hand. Yes, that's what we are working towards. And we have the record that there's no fire. We usually bring down even very, very serious fires in very, very short time, if we carry out our mapping and ensure that we get to work when we are supposed to get to work. So it's a collaboration thing. We need the public to always understand that we cannot just get to a particular scene and start firefighting immediately without getting the right access into the building and ensuring that everyone around is safe. Sometimes also we need to carry out rescue before embarking on firefighting. Rescue is very important, because if some persons are trapped in a building and you don't carry out rescue and you go ahead with firefighting, discover that you are still endangering the lives that are trapped. Because firefighting itself will be injurious to those that are trapped in the building. So these are some of the challenges that we face when we go out there to fight fire.
Okay, still speaking about collaboration, you have spoken about what you need the people to do. But how is it like with other emergency responders working with the fire response team?
Yeah, the Lagos State is, like I said, very, very proactive. We have other emergency responders in Lagos State, and it's in line with global best practices. We have the ambulance service, we have the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency. We have others like that collaborating with us.
So do you have security operatives that go with you, especially when you said that some people attack you? Do you have security operatives with you?
Yes, we have. The challenge is that most of the time when we go out to such areas and we have a large crowd around, it takes some particular collaboration to ensure that we are able to get on the matter and ensure that everyone is at peace in order for firefighting to continue. You know, the police cannot just start, understand. So peace has to reign before firefighting starts. It's very important for us to know that. So we have agencies around us that assist us, that collaborate with us to ensure that everything is done appropriately. Most of the time, we respond together when we discover that maybe it's a very serious emergency that needs serious attention. So the fire service will respond, LASEMA and others will also respond to ensure that things are done appropriately.
Okay, according to the report I read earlier, Etiosa and Ikeja were reported as the most affected local government areas. What challenges are these local governments facing, and why are they prone to fire outbreaks?
We know that in some parts of Ikeja we have industries, in some parts of Ikeja, and it's not particularly about industries. As a matter of fact, it's about the disposition of people to safety. That's the most important thing. What's your disposition to safety? How do you take safety? If you don't take it seriously, there's no local government where the fire service has not gone to carry out advocacy, and it's still ongoing. It's a regular thing. So it's your disposition to fire safety that determines what goes on around you. So it's not really particularly about whatever, whether it's an industrial area or not.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about the regulatory and policy measures. Are there regulations that regulations regarding fire safety for residents, commercial areas in Lagos? And if there are, how do you enforce these regulations?
Yeah, it's very compulsory for everyone to ensure that they follow fire safety rules, whether you work in an organization or you live in Lagos. Of course, you live in Lagos to work in Lagos, but there are rules for organizations and there are also rules for residential areas. You can't just go to a residential area and start a building without following some prescribed recommendations. That is what is operational in Lagos. But having said that, we also like to mention that there's a bill, presently a bill, that will soon be signed by Mr. Governor into law, ensuring that every household has a fire extinguisher. Every household has the appropriate measures put in place in order to prevent fire. For organizations and business premises, according to the law, the fire service is empowered to visit them, to inspect them, and also certify them to ensure that they comply with fire safety regulations.
Okay. Can you just leave a word of advice to Lagos residents about, handling fire outbreaks or prevention?
All right. Like we said earlier, that carelessness is the major cause of fire. If you are leaving your home, it's important for you to ensure that your environment is safe before leaving. Ensure you switch off all electrical gadgets. It's very important for you to do that. Don't leave cooking to children. It's important. There are some parents that would just ask their children to go and cook when they are not at home, and maybe on the phone they will direct the child on the phone, do this, and do that. I've seen cases where a child will switch on the gas and then start looking for matches. By the time the child gets matches and lights the match, the whole place is engulfed by fire. So safety is important. We also need to train our children that safety is important. And once they discover fire, the first thing is to raise alarm and evacuate the building. Don't stay in a building that is on fire. We also need to educate our children. Many times children believe that the safest place is their daddy's room or their mommy's room when there's emergency, when they discover such emergency. So we should educate them that it is appropriate to move out of the building when there's a fire emergency.
That's very important.
So it's very important. We need to train our children and let them know the right thing to do. So ensure that you have a fire extinguisher. Ensure that you are safe in terms of your escape and exit routes. So that in emergency, you can evacuate the building. Your life is more important than the property.
This is a good place to end this conversation. Your life is more
important. Those who make those calls to test if the fire service will respond.
Yeah.
Is there any
false call? You know that early this year we prosecuted someone that called and we could not get the particular scene that he was actually referring to. We took him to court, and I think we got justice for that case. So there is a law backing us on that. Emergency lines 767 or 112 are not to be called when there is no emergency. So
For
in case of emergency, you call 767 or 112. Then we have a direct line to the fire service, which is 08033235891. We have a Facebook page, which is Lagos State Fire Service. On Instagram at LASGOVT Fire.
All right.
We have Twitter at Lagos Rescue. And if you want to send us mail, you can send a mail to firesservice@lagosstate.gov.ng. So,
thank you very much. Head Inspectorate Unit Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service, Olusoya Temitayo. He has educated us fire prevention and management in Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation. The conversation continues right after this break.